everybody. It is April 14th, 2023, Zone 5, interior of British Columbia, Canada, and I'm standing here today with you in front of my spring vegetable garden. So I did a lot of work the past couple of weeks to clean everything up, and I had to fix some of the garden beds. Some of the perimeters had decayed. I had to empty out buckets, spread compost, do the edging of some of the beds where there are no raised beds, so we have to keep the weeds back, and I just like to edge along with a spaded shovel just to keep a little bit of a trench in between, and I find that does a really good job of just keeping the weeds back. So there was a new no-date garden that I put in on the last video, and since then I've begun to repair the bean poles and sow a couple of seeds. So it's pretty early yet for Zone 5. Whoa, it's the boys.
Come on, guys. Here. You should have caught that on film. Come on, Dex.
I did. So it's Zone 5. It's pretty early on, and we don't want to plant too many things yet. Well, so I've just put a few seeds in the ground, and like I said, I know it's pretty early on, but I've got so much to seed that I need to get going on it really early if I want to make sure I get everything done. Okay, so carrots, onion, beets, a couple things like that have been seeded, and I've got a lot more to go. So I am doing some succession sowing of the carrots and the beets, and I'm also doing some companion planting this year with my carrots. So I am sowing the leek and chive along the borders of my carrots, and that is to help keep the carrot fly at bay. So apparently they don't like the smell of onion, so we're going to use that as a natural pest deterrent. I've got parsnips that I did seed because they take a long time to germinate. Come here. No, don't drink that. Dex is trying to drink the mushroom water that I've got soaking. So I've got 2 mushroom logs, 1 chestnut mushroom and 1 oyster mushroom. And these are mushroom logs that I bought at the farmer's market, and they're meant to grow mushrooms on your counter. But they have been spent, and I thought, for fun, I'm going to soak them in water and disperse them into areas of the yard that really nothing else is going to grow. So shady areas. This is the carrot bed. I grow at least 5 different varieties of carrots here, as well as parsnips. And this year I'm lining this bed with chive and leek for some natural onion pest defense. It's a bit of a mishmash bed. I've got rhubarb, horseradish, blueberry, and red currant as well, and everything all seems to grow pretty good. So yeah, it's a nice bed. This was the first bed that I did no-till 3 years ago, and I was so happy with the results. I've now this year transformed all beds in the garden to no-till or no-dig. Okay, next over here is my garlic and onion bed. I'm also going to grow sweet peas back here because this bed, if you can see, just borders the edge of the forest, and it stays really, really cool here in the summer, and I thought peas would grow really well back here because of course they're a cool, loving, shade-loving plant. I've also put the onions and garlic back here because this used to be a potato bed, and I think the potatoes really depleted the soil in this bed. So I thought that, well, garlic and onions are pretty hardy, and hopefully they can grow really good. I have since supplemented with lots of leaf and grass clippings, some bone meal, some wood chips, some compost. And this spring, after we get fishing, we'll make some fish fertilizer and hopefully be able to have some fish tea for all of the beds. So next over here are my bean poles. I have got 4 homemade log teepee poles, which vary in height from probably 10 feet to 6 feet. The bed is a C-shaped bed, and I just grow beans here. Oh, other than some nasturtiums, some pole nasturtiums I have planted. So I'm trying to tuck things, flowers anyways, in and around the garden to help with the pollination. So every area of the garden I'm trying to plant just different flowers. And of course it's pretty too. So purple beans, yellow wax beans, scarlet runner beans. I've got some of those Asian long beans, and then the regular old green beans are going to go in that bed. Okay, so just to the right of the beans, I have my compost. Yay! So we've got 3 different piles. The new pile, as you can see on the palette, the really old pile, which I have pretty much dug and used already, and then the piles from last year, which will be ready next year. So I'm doing a rotational 3-bed system or pile system here, and I'm hoping to get some walls on the 3 piles and refine it a little more. It's pretty rudimentary, but it's been working. And right in front of the compost piles, I've got a nice long bed that, when everything is grown up, covers the compost and just looks a little prettier with some stuff growing in front of it. And this year I have planted our homegrown seed potatoes, which we've been rotating for 3 years now, I think. And then on the edge, right over there, I will be planting zucchini, because I find zucchini to trail and kind of be hard to maintain, and it can kind of grow a little bit crazy. So I think this corner, which is really sunny, the zucchini can have it all to itself and grow as it pleases. So that will be really nice. Okay, and here is the main garden. This was the original garden that I first built when we moved into this property 12 years ago. The garden bed itself was in need of such dire repair. The walls were decayed because it was untreated wood, and so I have just scabbed more untreated wood over the old wood. A very temporary solution, I realize. And I know when I was nailing, I was basically hammering into nothing because the nails went in so easily, but my plan is to perimeter the whole garden with deadfall. So we've got lots of really big logs, and what we'll do is we will line the garden with the big logs like I've done already on the one side, and just build it up from there and let this wood decompose naturally. So anyway, this is the garden. It is a 20 by 20 raised bed, and probably about 18 to 20 inches in most places. And I've got 3 main sections of dirt and 2 walkways in between. This year I will be growing tomatoes on the far left. I will be growing the beets, broccoli, and cauliflower in the middle. And then, as you can see, all of the garlic I left in from last year's harvest will be growing in and amongst random brassicas. Things like kohlrabi, cabbages, turnips, and radishes. So that will be nice. Now you can see all of the pots that I've got around the garden, and those are just annuals and perennial flowers, different cool wild mix flowers that I got. I don't really know exactly what everything is. I know there's calendula, zinnia, there's pansy. What else? A whole lot of beautiful flowers that attract the bees to pollinate my garden further. So that is awesome. This plant on the corner of our raised bed garden is called a joncaberry, and I believe it is a red currant mixed with a blackberry or something like that. It does not have the little paper packaging, or maybe it's a red currant and a gooseberry mixed, and it doesn't have the paper packaging. I think that's what it is. But it seems to be loving this location, and I love berries, so I'm sure I'm going to love whatever those grow to be. This is my 10-year-old red currant bush. It produces wonderfully. I have to divide it again, and believe it or not, I've already divided it a couple of times in its life. Just remove a clump and put it in a different area of the yard, and it seems to transplant just beautifully. It is just starting to wake up. It is not quite as lively looking as the joncaberry. So maybe it's just the location that it's in, or perhaps its age. It is old and tired. Don't blame it. And along here is where I'm going to put the tomatoes. So I have got some rebar, just some 10M rebar that has been bent by me, so it is not perfect. And I think there is 8 of those all together. Now my intention is to bed the tomatoes in between and to put plastic over the hoops. I plan on putting this long log right here on top and just securing everything together, probably with some zap straps just to make it a little more structurally sound, and then some plastic over the top of that, and then put my tomatoes in just for an early greenhouse so I can get them going a little earlier, because they are inside the house and they would love to come out under the natural light. So lots of pots around the garden, and a shot of my shoddy construction work there. And there we go, nice clean garden, ready for spring. Ready for all of the beautiful vegetables. I can't wait. So over here I had some really poorly growing Oregon grape bush that we hacked out and just put a bunch of dirt on the ground. And it looks way cleaner than it did before. And in those 4 Rubbermaid garbage pails, I've got potatoes. So I've got 4 russets and 4 reds in each potato bucket, layered with compost and dirt. So we're trying that this year because potatoes are super destructive for the soil, and I thought it would be a cool thing to do. I've heard of bucket potatoes. I've always wanted to try it. I do have some in the ground though, just for insurance, but I thought that would be super cool. Another thing that I'm doing just in and around these buckets, and so we're sort of bordering the forest line here again, but what I've done is these mullein plants grow wild here, and this one grew like 6 feet tall last year, so I saved the flower stalk. And so I'm going to take those seeds and just scatter them along the perimeter of the forest, and hopefully I want to naturally cultivate the forest with its own indigenous plants, if that makes sense. I just want to grow more mullein, and since it grew so well there last year, just behind these buckets, I thought, why not try to cultivate it and just bring it forth a little bit more. So if that goes well, that would be really awesome. And then I've also scattered some dirt underneath this boat right here, and I intend on scattering those mushroom log wood chip there that I've got soaking in the water. I'm just going to break up the mushroom logs that I've already used and spent. I've rehydrated them in water all day long, and I'm just going to break them up and just chuck them underneath places that are really shady and cover them with some saturated wood chip. So I'm hoping to get something from that. This is the old 14-foot aluminum boat that we no longer fish in. Decided to retire it, repurpose it, and grow plants out of it. Why not? So just herbs in here. And how fun is a herb boat, right? Oh. Cows are out. Ferdinand! Ferdinand alerted us to the fact the cows are out across the field. Way across the field. There they are. Hello, cows. So chive, Welsh onion, tarragon, borage for pollination, dill, cilantro, mint, and chamomile. And some of it just grows wild at this point, and some of it is intentional, but it gives us a great herb harvest. Okay, I'm just in our old cold frame greenhouse that no longer has plastic on it, but I still utilize the dirt and the frame for structural support. And what I grow in here predominantly now is one big tomato plant in the corner right there in the back, and then I grow lettuce and cucumber. So lettuce, arugula, chard, and spinach. Leafy greens, lettuce, and cucumbers. But the leafy greens have already been seeded, and that's because they are cold loving. They'll come up when they're ready, which hopefully will be next week. And then I'll start thinning and we'll have a delicious feast of microgreens. I cannot wait. And then along the back wall, I will plant the cucumbers. Last year I did loofahs and Armenian cucumbers, and those were fabulous. I love Armenian cucumbers. If you can find those, definitely grow them. They are really tasty, really crunchy. So I intend on having the cucumbers grow up these walls if they grow well and I'm lucky, and even luckier if I can get a cucumber ceiling across the top of this greenhouse. I'm going to put my roll of wire across, and we'll see if we can get that. That would look super cool. And that is the 4-foot pile of brush that we've just trimmed back from mostly the Oregon grapes, but just in and around the borders and the perimeters of the garden. So we'll get that burnt up here in a day or so. But what a cleanup this year. really happy with everything this year. So I'll keep you updated, and happy planting.